everybody. Got a pretty big agenda today, so I'd like to get started. And Kristen Eschenfelder should be joining us any moment to give us an update on the search and screen. So before she gets here, I thought we could just do announcements quickly. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Heather Shiven. I'm the convener for Librarians Assembly Steering Committee. And so my first, I'm just going to do a quick announcement here. So welcome Ann Glorioso to the steering committee. Thank you, Ann, for filming for an assignment about the steering committee. And was gracious enough to do so. So does anyone else have announcements they'd like to make? Okay, so the other announcement that I have is that I'm also on the EDC case subcommittee, and we've recently sent out an email to ask people to sign up for affinity groups. So I think everyone should have gotten that email, so we'll send out a reminder email soon. And the affinity groups are just a way for people to build community across different library units. So watch for that email and see if there's an affinity group that speaks to you that would be helpful to you in just building a network here. Any questions about that? Any questions about that email? Okay, so we wait for. Why don't we go to new staff? So Librarians Assembly is also about building community. So if there's any new staff here that this is your first Librarians Assembly, no, I'm not sure if we have any of that. This is your first meeting, you just want to introduce yourself? I don't think we yes.
I'm Pete Haney. I'm the administrator in the Chicano Latino Studies program, and so I oversee our small library program.
Great, thank you. Very glad to hear. Welcome. Thanks for coming. Thanks for introducing yourself. Yes.
Can you repeat that?
Oh, maybe
yes,
would you mind just stay up and...
My voice is a little soft. My name is Pete Haney. I'm the administrator for the Chicano and Latino Studies program, and we have a small library that's part of the general libraries. So.
Great, thanks.
Sorry that we're waiting.
Heather, can I make a little pitch?
Yeah.
So I have my eyes dilated. That's why I'm wearing sunglasses inside. My name is Beth Harper. I'm part of the Librarians Assembly Programming Committee, and I want to thank everyone who came to last week's library lunch. The conversations were very lively, and we will be having one later in the semester. I just want to urge you, this is the third one we've had, and they're really just pretty casual get-togethers, just to find out what your colleagues are doing. We ask for what unit we ask you to sign up just so we can kind of put people at tables who don't necessarily work together every day, so that you are sure to get a cross-section of experiences. We don't have a date for the next one yet, but we will have another one. And if you come to one, you can certainly come to more, because there are different people every time. So please consider signing up for the next one.
And Kristen, I went to the library lunch, this past library lunch, and it was really great to meet people in different units of the library. So Kristen is here. Kristen's going to give us a quick update on the Search and Screen Committee for the Vice Provost for Libraries. Thank you, Kristen.
Also give you an update on your intrepid student worker at the front desk, who was very friendly and helpful about getting me the pass when I showed up late without my ID. So kudos to her. Well trained. Good job. There's not much I can tell you about the Search and Screen in the particulars at this point, because it's still ongoing. I believe it closes this week. So we are expecting that we will get many kind of last minute applications. We've been told by the Search and Screen that's how it works. And so other than that, the process is underway. We think we're well organized. We hope that it will proceed smoothly. I would like to thank you very much for the set of questions that this committee and the membership forwarded to us. They were very helpful.
Any questions for Kristen? I don't care.
Do you have any dates, more date milestones, stuff that you can share?
Sadly, we are not allowed to share dates. But I can tell you, we know when it closes. And we know that it will hopefully all be over by sometime in April-ish, hopefully. And then, of course, you'll know when the finalists come to campus, but we don't know that yet either, but that will be posted. But they prefer to keep kind of other intermediate dates nebulous. Yeah.
Do you have any sense yet of what role the outside consultants play? How many people applied who would not have applied, that have not been involved, and any way to judge that?
So the role of the outside consultants, I think is fair to say, has been in the recruiting area. So I believe that they have done quite a bit of work in kind of chatting people up to encourage them to apply. Unfortunately, we have no way of knowing who, what effect that has, because we'd have to run a controlled experiment, which we can't do. But I do know a few people have been forwarded to talk to me as well as chair, but the vast majority have not, which means that the search firm is doing all of that talking with them. So they are doing quite a bit of work in the chatting up, getting people to apply, answering basic questions. I know they've been very open to taking documentation, informational documentation from various stakeholders that they then forward on to interested parties that they use to answer questions, things like that. And they seem very well organized and open to our requests for changes in procedure and things. So thus far, I've been pretty happy with them.
This may have been touched on before. So the finalists would be at least 3, maybe 4?
Yeah, 3-ish. Yeah. Plus or minus. Yeah. There's no hard number, but the expectation is around 3. And I can't tell you much about the pool yet. And I very specifically have not looked at the Who Applies page so that I can speak about the pool safely in total ignorance. But so everything I say now is going to be more statistical or kind of what the search firm tells us about the field. So we have been warned not to expect hordes of applicants. As we know, the number of available academic library senior managers is fairly small in the US. And there are a number of very attractive positions open right now. So I think it's really important as we move forward towards, especially as we move towards the campus visit phase, to remember that there is not an infinite pool of people out there to choose from. And in fact, we will have to all put our recruiting hats on when these people come to campus and do some work in convincing them that this is a great career opportunity for them. Because these people could very easily stay where they are right now. They're all mid-career probably and have, they're fully employed, or there's many other attractive opportunities available to them. So don't forget that there's not an infinite pool to choose from. But I can't tell you anything more about the pool because I haven't looked.
Well, I would like to thank Kristen for letting us submit questions to the Search and Screen Committee. That did not happen in the last round. And I'd like to thank everyone for submitting questions. I think even if there were questions that the Search and Screen Committee did not use, they informed, right? And they informed people on the Search and Screen who are not librarians of the concerns and priorities of library staff. So I want to thank everyone for submitting questions, everyone up there for submitting questions. I think
I can say a little bit about kind of how we selected questions. I can't tell you which questions were selected, although I will say we did some Frankensteining, we edited things ourselves. But I can tell you the questions we selected, it had to be related to the PBL, so something in the PBL. And then it had to be a question that wouldn't overly privilege an internal candidate by, assuming some kind of internal knowledge. So those were kind of a couple of the major criteria we used when looking for good questions. So what we did is we took the PBL and kind of broke it apart into chunks, and then we said, oh, well, these questions seem to relate to this chunk, and then we kind of chose from amongst the questions and then edited. That's how we did the process. And I think my gut feeling is that some questions from this audience were used, but I can't be sure. I can't tell you which ones, and we probably edited them anyway. But that's the sort of questions that we have. And then it's important to keep in mind too that we only have time for like 9 questions total with these people, and we had 11 areas in the PBL, so we were already kind of crunched. So we can't ask them everything. And I remember Steve had asked me about, is anyone else submitting questions? And I would say one other body did submit a question, and that was the Friends of the Library. No one else suggested questions. So we had your questions, we had the Friends of the Library question, we had a set of suggested sort of standard executive search questions from the Provost's office, and then our own imaginations and creativity. Any other questions?
Thank you very much, Kristen, for coming and making something.
Yes, it's a pleasure. Sorry I was late.
So I just want to do a very quick update on the Vice Provost for Libraries committee that Librarians, the ad hoc committee that Librarians Assembly has put together. And in looking at this today, so the job ad closes on the 19th. So I wanted to make sure that I just downloaded and saved a copy for myself of the job ad. And I realized it's the VPL PDL. I think that's right. Okay, so Librarians Assembly has put together an ad hoc committee just to do some work around keeping library staff engaged, keeping you informed about what's going on, staying in communication with the search and screen, staying in communication with the Provost's office, also kind of trying to stay in line, like try to see what other, because we're the CAST, or the governing body for GLS academic staff, what are other campus governance doing? What's other shared governance bodies doing? So if we can keep up to date with them as well. So the other people on that ad hoc committee are Ian Benton, Raina Bloom, Beth Harper, Todd Nicholson-Amblon, Josiah Redford, and me. So just a quick update that we are planning a follow-up meeting. So we had that first introductory meeting, that all-staff meeting, was it in November, of like just getting together and talking about what happened in the last hiring process and trying to set priorities for library staff. So we're going to have a follow-up meeting to that on February 13th, and I will send an email out about that later this week, where people can come and see what the ad hoc committee is planning, what's on our charge, what tasks we've assigned ourselves, and just get feedback from library staff to make sure we're on the right track and that we're doing what makes sense for library staff as well. And then we also collected questions from library staff for finalists, right? We have the questions from library staff for the semifinalists that the search and screen committee will ask. And then we've also collected questions from library staff for when the finalist candidates come and do public presentations. So the ad hoc committee is going to work on Frankensteining some questions for that. And I'm talking with Carol Kobe, who is a secretary in the Provost's office who's doing the planning for those finalist presentations. So we can figure out the format and how many questions we can ask, who's going to ask the questions, and then we'll have that information for that February 13th. Any questions about that? Any concerns you want to voice now? Okay, and we're just going to try to keep on top of this, keep everyone informed. Okay, so we've already done announcements and new stuff, so I'd like to welcome Josh, sorry, it's Garoon, and he is going to talk about UBUS, the United Faculty and Staff Week. So welcome, Josh. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me. So I'm going to keep this short because I know everybody's got stuff to do in the other room for so long. So I've been asked just to give you guys a introduction to what UFAS is, just to know the room. Are there any, can everybody hear me first of all? Are there any UFAS members here? Yay, I should have you guys come up here and do this then. I'll do it anyhow. So UFAS is, as Heather said, the University Faculty and Academic Staff Union. It's Local 223. It's affiliated with the American Federation of Teachers, which puts it as part of the AFL-CIO overall. So for those of you who are familiar with the South Central Federation of Labor and Kevin Gundlach's group, UFAS is part of that, as is the TAA, as are a lot of unions, including ASME 2412, which for those of you who are not academic staff or faculty, but rather university staff, ASME 2412 would be your union. There are actually a couple others that operate at the university, but I think that covers probably everybody who would be in this room. So I'm going to give you my pitch, and it's going to be a personal pitch because that's all I know. I joined the union about a year and a half ago. I came to the university as an assistant professor and still am in the community, Department of Community Environmental Sociology in CALS. I was not a member of the union for the first couple of years, largely because I didn't know the union existed. That is obviously not a great thing. And for those of you who didn't know that there was a union that existed that would cover you, I empathize, and we are working on that. And in fact, the reason I'm here is because over this past summer, we organized an organizing committee so that people would actually understand we existed. And effectively what the union does is a number of things. The question that people tend to have before I even get to that is about what we can't do. And of course, as of Act 10, several years back, we cannot engage in collective bargaining as a union of public employees. So the question then becomes, why bother? Don't we already have something like ASPRO or other organizations that may represent staff and faculty across the campus? And the answer is yes, we do. Faculty have the Faculty Senate. We also have profs. There are all sorts of mechanisms to get voices to the administration, as the case may be for whoever's involved, but it's not the same thing as having a union. For a variety of reasons, which I'd be happy to go into from my perspective and my experience. The reason I joined UFAS is because it's not the same thing as having a union. From my perspective, from a faculty senate, profs perspective, profs and the faculty senate make a really nice velvet glove, but without something of an iron fist in terms of the union backing it up, in terms of solidarity, in terms of workers coming together and organizing together, not just in faculty and academic staff, but reaching across. I mentioned 2412, or reaching across to some of the other unions associated with the university on campus, or through Scuffle to other unions, including MATC's union, including unions in Milwaukee that are also together in higher education. We really have opportunities to go beyond what's going on this campus and to go beyond the very diplomatic negotiations that tend to take place through shared governance and actually reach out and do more. And that was what attracted me to UFAS. That's why I joined, is because given what's happening to shared governance and to some of those more diplomatic overtures that we make as faculty and staff, I was dissatisfied with what I thought the possibilities were and felt that UFAS was another way for me to get involved. That would be a little more, sure, oriented toward, I'll just say, a slightly more direct, a slightly less hand-in-hand approach. And that has definitely been something that we have thought a lot about, is how to handle that, because we still want to get along with everyone. But a couple of the things that UFAS has done that have been a little bit more direct and have involved a little bit more of a direct action, less negotiation approach, Starting a couple years ago and up to the present day, we've been involved with the Fund the Freeze campaign. The freeze in this case is the tuition freeze. The fund is what you do to fund university when you frozen tuition. And UFAS has actually been very supportive of the idea of limiting tuition, whether freezing or keeping it low. The problem is that if the state doesn't actually fund the university in the face of that tuition freeze, then everyone from faculty in their offices to librarians doing the work that you're trying to do to people just trying to keep the campus running on a day-to-day basis suffer for it, whether it's because of their own salaries and benefits or because of the resources that are made available to them or the resources that are made available to the students and other people who use the university. So that's one campaign that UFAS has participated in. Another slightly closer to home, slightly less system-wide was a fair pay campaign that we occupied us through a lot of last year. And this was really focused on particularly precarious employees in the faculty and staff ranks. We focused especially on faculty associates, which is a little known category of employees at the university who tend to have either PhDs or multiple masters and certifications, but who don't get paid as if they do, or who at least weren't paid as if they did. And in some cases, we've actually been able to successfully push departments and other organizations on campus and employ them into making those pay scales more equitable. So that's, again, just two examples of what we're doing. Something that we just launched that I'm personally involved with this fall is a committee on political education at COPE, which is the political arm of a union. It's the sort of committee in which you can actually make endorsements, get out the vote, get involved with both legislative and electoral politics. This is something UFAS has never had before. We have just started it, and part of that is because over the summer we have been able to increase our membership by roughly 20 to 25%. So that's my pitch. I'm going to keep it at that, other than to say there are little half-sheet information sheets at the back on the table that include on the back our spring 2018 schedule. And if I have been sufficiently motivating that you are ready to sign up right now, or if you just want to get a form and think about it, there are membership forms back there as well. And I can, again, answer any questions either now or afterwards if you really want me not to be up in front of you. Yeah.
Is UFAS involved in the job families? The titling and compensation work that the universities do?
So we are involved in the sense that we are aware of it and we are trying to push on the process. We are not involved in the sense that no one is inviting UFAS to sit at the table. And that's, this is, I would say, a strength of UFAS, is that while departments and colleges and profs and the faculty senate are all formally involved in various ways, shapes, or forms in the retitling and compensation reforms, or whatever you want to call them, UFAS has been outside and has been pushing a little harder on certain things. And the faculty associate, the Fair Pay campaign was not part of that. It was very much we tried to be very diplomatic at first, it got us nowhere, and so we launched into a fuller campaign. And there are lots of details there that I won't go into, but it was ultimately, in my opinion, successful. And I think in the opinion of the people who we were fighting for. So. Other questions? All right, thank you guys for giving me your time and attention. I'll be here afterwards.
Jurgens, you give us highlights of the ASA December meeting? Is there January meeting?
There was no January.
Okay, great. Thanks.
So this update for the academic staff assembly will be a little bit shorter than usual because we only had the December meeting. The January meeting was canceled. At the last academic staff assembly meeting that was held on December 11th. Sure. So the last academic staff assembly meeting was held on December 11th. Just for everyone's information, everyone is welcome to always come to the academic staff assembly meetings. All academic staff are welcome to come. They're always held on the second Monday of each month from 3:30 to 5 p.m. in Bascom 272. So if you ever want to come to a meeting, you're always welcome to come. You can just put it on your schedule and then come. There are always like an interesting list of topics that are discussed at each meeting, and the agendas and the materials are sent out to all academic staff, so everybody should always automatically get those announcements. All right, so at the last meeting, Kevin Nemi, he is the ASEC chair. So ASEC is like the executive committee that's part of the Academic Staff Assembly. Discussed a number of different things. I think probably the most interesting thing for everyone today will be that there's an Academic Staff Institute coming up in March on the 15th. It's going to be held at Union South. It costs $18 to attend. There's a link in the notes. So if you go to the notes that are like linked here, December meeting notes, and I'll send them out to everybody after the meeting today. You can go, you can take a look and see what is going to be taking place at the Academic Staff Institute. So if you're wondering what that is, I have a little bit of information here. The Academic Staff Institute is an annual professional development conference for UW-Madison academic staff held during the spring semester. They're going to be having a number of interesting speakers, but the schedule isn't posted yet. So just kind of keep your ears to the ground or whatever, and then that will be announced sometime in the next few weeks, I think. ASEC also recently met with Warren Heller. He is the Vice Chancellor for Finance and Administration. They discussed the new group on campus called the Protest Oversight Group. I don't know if anyone has any interest in that. Can everybody in the back still hear me? Okay, good. This group will be charged in part with reviewing the campus response to various demonstrations and protests, including procedures for speaker arrangements. And the stated goal of the group is to help students safely protest. There will be a call for nominations that will be going out. And if you want to join the group, you can. I think they're going to have sort of like a representative sample of academic staff and other staff on campus. ASEC also met with the provost. They discussed the upcoming cooperative extension merger with UW-Madison. One of the interesting things that will come out from that will be that about 700 additional academic staff will be joining UW-Madison. So something to think about. It probably will affect the libraries in some way. I'm not exactly sure how. And then sort of like on that same tag, Provost Mangelsdorf at the meeting had some additional notes and just said that there's like an ongoing restructuring that's part of the UW extension. So there will be lots of changes that will be coming up. She didn't have like necessarily like concrete examples of some of those changes, but just so if anyone in the libraries is engaged with the UW extension, there's going to be a lot of very substantial changes among the staff that work for the UW extension. Other things that the provost discussed in her discussion during the academic staff assembly meeting, for some time has been pushing an initiative to collect data on instructional staff and the kind of activities that instructional staff participate in. And one of the things they want to do is like survey faculty, instructional staff to collect certain data, including the percentage of their appointment paid on instructional funds, the credit hours that they teach, and how many independent studies they supervise. They're not going to be including enrollment data, but this obviously will affect instructional staff that are not necessarily listed as the instructor of record. However, some staff, academic staff do contribute to the instructional missions, such as preparing laboratory classes or instructional design. I'm imagining there could be some kind of interaction with the libraries on this, but I'm not exactly sure. That data would be posted online, kind of like salary data is posted online, so for anybody to see. So just something to think about that's potentially coming up in state government. Other things that were discussed at the last academic staff assembly are a series of resolutions, and I have some data to sort of pass around if anybody's interested. So a resolution was passed by the academic staff assembly to endorse the UW-Madison policy on sexual harassment and sexual violence. So that's obviously very important. Now, if you're wondering what that says, I have the whole thing printed out here. Obviously, I can't summarize this because it's about 20 or 30 pages long, but I'm just going to pass this around. If you want to just pass this around, you guys can see this top page is the top page is the resolution, and then the following pages are the actual policy. And I will make sure that there's a link to that. And I think there already is a link to it in the notes. If there isn't already, I'll put a link to that, and then everybody can take a look. Then an additional amendment was passed to document 275, prohibited harassment definitions and rules governing the conduct of UW-Madison faculty and academic staff. So if you're wondering what that is, I also printed that out for you. So the first part is the changes, the list of changes that were made at the last meeting, and then If you page through, you'll get to the actual current document. So I have printed up the current document for everyone on prohibited harassment, as well as the changes to that document. So there you go. You can have that also. Pass that around. And then something that does definitely affect a few library staff. Because of the titling and compensation study changes that are happening, staff were concerned that we would lose the status of distinguished as a prefix, so the distinguished prefix. So the Academic Staff Assembly passed a resolution asking the provost and the chancellor to make sure that we retain the distinguished prefix as part of the new titling system. And then I also printed off that resolution if anybody would like to take a look at that. And that really concludes the notes for the last Academic Staff Assembly meeting. Does anybody have any questions for me? Yes.
Hi, and this is just like a clarification.
Sure.
I'm Deb Shapiro, who you know me. I'm on ASEC, and so I'm the liaison from ASEC to the Librarians Assembly. And the thing that Tom was talking about reporting effort, reporting instructional staff for hours taught, it doesn't really affect anybody individually.
Okay.
This is all part of the legislature wanting the university to be a little more, to evaluate, what's going on at different campuses in order to fund us and, evaluate us against other campuses. So there is a place where you can look up, like, I can find myself in there because I'm instructional staff, but it's basically data that's pulled from SIS, from the student and from the information system. And it doesn't really affect anybody individually. It doesn't show how much money you earn, or it just shows how many credit hours you teach. And the weird thing for me is that they put it in two buckets. It's traditional classes. So for me, that's either the online or the face-to-face classes that I teach. And then they have one that's called individual instruction, and that's where independent studies go. And I get extra credit for those independent studies, but some of those independent studies for me are students that are coming in through a course sharing consortium, and I don't do anything for them. All I do is report their grade, but it still goes in to show like how many credit hours I teach.
So I have a question for you. So would you say that's correct that there might be some concern among some academic staff, not necessarily people in the libraries, I'm not sure, to be really honest, because the libraries are so big, but that some academic staff might be concerned that since this data is being collected, that the idea is that some decisions about staffing might be made about from that data? And if they have an instructional role and it's not being reported?
Well, I think that's the problem with it, that it doesn't take into consideration all the instructional work that librarians who are not in an instructional category.
And many other academic staff.
Right. I don't think it would, it doesn't get, on a very macro level, it can affect the funding that comes to this campus based on how we're compared to other campuses. It's how they're going to divvy up the money among the different UW system campuses. So it would take a long time for it to trickle down and cause layoffs, for example.
Well, that's not necessarily what I was implying, but yeah.
But yeah, but it's related to the governor's attitude of, just be hopeless, people teaching.
Yeah. So I thought I saw another.
Is that part of it?
Yes.
It was interesting, it's on the same topic. You said this would be reported online like the salary information is. My understanding is they're reducing the access to the salary information. So I can't remember exactly, but the Red Book, I think they're not printing it anymore or something. I mean, I wish but they're limiting access even more to the salaries. So it seems odd.
I'm sure you're right. I don't know.
And I mean, the salaries, looking at the Red Book is kind of like opening a Pandora's box, but it's information we've had access to that they're now reducing.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thanks, Tom.
Sure.
And now we have Michael Cohen, talk about University Library Committee. Also, the group that ASA sent the call out. What was the group to make decisions about who can talk on campus or to help students protest? That the call already went out and it's closed for them. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Could you just say the name of that group again? I'm like blanking on the name of the group.
It is the Protest Oversight Group.
Okay, so the Protest Oversight Committee, that call has gone out and is closed. Just don't watch for the call.
The University Library Committee is the Faculty Senate's subcommittee that liaises with the library. I don't want to say oversees library, because what they mostly do is listen. But anyway, at their December meeting, Ed gave a report on what his plans are for his last semester. I'm guessing we'll hear more about this at the all-staff meeting in February, but he said his focus is going to be working with Ben Strand on some large gift opportunities that they're hoping to finalize. Finalizing the consolidation plans, one for the physical science libraries and one for the social science libraries. Again, his goal is to have the plan finished, not have the actual consolidation or implementation until that will be several years. He'd also like to clarify the relationship between the general library system and the special purpose libraries like Chicano and Latino Studies. He also wants to help facilitate the relocation of UW Press in this building, which is still in the plans, although no action seems to be happening in that regard. And he also wants to focus on what he can do to help implement the library facilities master plan, which in the next 6 months means mostly just communication about what the plan is and possibly kickstart some fundraising connected to that. Doug Way then gave a presentation on what the campus library's collection plan is. He reviewed some data we have on trends in library use and also trends in the publishing world. Where we're heading is to move away from our local collection of about, or the statewide collection of about 1 million items to connections with partnerships both across the Big Ten and in HathiTrust that would give us access to over 100 million volumes if we leverage the technology and discovery tools and electronic delivery to access them. He did stress, though, that at least 45% of the new library materials we're acquiring are not available electronically, especially things in special collections or in our area studies. So there will still be physical materials coming into our library buildings, but we'll do more with coordinated collection across our other Big Ten partners and also focus in new areas of collecting for libraries like data sets and streaming videos. Carla Strand then gave a presentation on Gender and Women's Studies Office, some of their initiatives connected with the fact that this year is their 40th anniversary. On the agenda was a discussion of the library facility master plan, but we ran out of time. So the February, the ULC does not meet in January. The focus of the February meeting will be an actual discussion among the faculty representatives of what they think of the facilities master plan and any input they might have into moving that plan forward. Any questions?
Thanks, Michael. And now we've got Peggy to do the treasury report.
Hi, I'm Peggy Smith from the Business Library, for those of you that don't know me. And I'm going to give you our current business budget update. Right now, we currently have $1,330.96 in the bank. So it sounds like a lot of money, right? Sounds good. And we are doing good. We happen to know that we are staying on budget and we're doing very well. $50 of that budget is already allocated for the actual 2018-2019 budget. And $50. What that means is that most of us haven't paid our dues for this year yet. Almost all of us haven't paid our dues for this year yet. So anytime you want to pay your dues, you can just send a check to me, see me, any way you want to pay, cash check is fine. I'm over in Granger Hall. You can look me up in the directory, or my office number is 2135 Granger Hall if you want to write that down. All right. We spent $14.95 on our book sharing activity, and that was actually $10 under budget. So good job. I hope you all enjoyed that. We have $819.28 allocated for the high tea. So far, we spent $77.95 on our Eat, Talk, Run activities, and we're only halfway through that, and that's about half of what we've projected to spend on that, so we're doing very well on that. And so far, we've spent nothing on our business meetings, and you can see we're providing snacks. So for those of you who are providing the snacks, please submit your receipts. That would be great. Because we have projected to spend $97 on that. So far, what we have is that we have spent or allocated $962.18. And remember, we have $1,330 in the bank. So we are pretty much right on budget. So great job. And remember, go ahead and pay your dues anytime.
Thanks, Peggy. Yep. And then we have got programming update, Pamela and Ann. Good amount of time for program update.
So I just thought I'd pop over to the Librarians Assembly homepage, which you can see here. And we do try to keep a list of all of our upcoming events. So I want to thank the other members of the program committee, Beth Harper and Ann Glorioso. We've been meeting regularly, trying to get things planned for the spring semester. So you'll see that this Friday, 2 days from now, in this same space from 8:30 to 9:30, we'll be having the first e-talk run of the spring semester. We have some really interesting programs lined up and have actually been able to reschedule Kalani Adolfo so that they can present on the topic that was promised in November but had to be rescheduled due to illness. So please mark that on your calendar. I ordered extra bagels, so Peggy's money is soon to disappear. But know that that's happening, and then we're also scheduling some events for February, March, and April. If you have any new initiatives that you're working on, any projects that you've heard about and you want to know more, please approach anyone on the committee. We're happy to try to get things lined up, and it's really a painless way to introduce a topic. It's only 5 minutes, maybe 5 minutes for questions. So we find it just a really nice way to kind of keep abreast of what's happening, and maybe even learning some new things about strange hobbies that your colleagues might have. Also, you'll note that the date for the high tea and recognition ceremony has changed. We've updated that to be Wednesday, April 11th. Thanks to Connie's very eagle eye, she noticed that We had originally conflicted with the all-campus staff service awards sponsored by library administration. So we'll be having many reasons to celebrate in April. One of the things you might notice on the website is that we have added a shout-outs page. So we are often, we are the group that can take care of your concerns, and we have done, recognition with the award ceremonies at the high tea, but we thought, we need more. We need more recognition. So we now have an opportunity to put in shout-outs. If you go to this page, you can just see that there's, thanks to Beth Harper's eagle eye, correct grammar in the whom would you like to recognize question, and which library department or this is first report. It's a little bit of information. We would love to be able to kind of share shout-outs at the next business meeting. At all of the kind of business meetings that we do, we'd like to incorporate this into some of our programming. And then these shout-outs, anything that's submitted this year, will be featured at the high tea. We're hoping to have maybe just kind of like a running slideshow of recognition for people who have been appreciated for any contribution that they or their unit has made. So it can be just somebody who's gone above and beyond. Other examples, feel free to chat. Somebody who's done some special work, something who's really done something for a patron that you thought was quite worthy of recognition. So note that we'll have the shout outs. We'll try to incorporate these into the high tea this year with just recognition. And it might be something that helps generate award categories in future years. So that's something that we're also kind of working to redo, to kind of revitalize it, etc. Any questions about the shout out page? Anybody want to give a shout out? This is your chance. Okay, I'm going to give a shout out. I'm going to give a shout out to Beth because she was the impetus behind the library lunch. And as we mentioned, we had a really good turnout. It was despite the cold. And so look for opportunities to do that, to connect. I think what we really want to do is make sure that this Librarians Assembly becomes a place where you can kind of work and meet colleagues and do this kind of recognition. So any questions about, at this point, all the information that's submitted here goes to my email. So I will be the person who kind of disseminates it further. And what I was thinking, we might just have like pictures at the next business meeting on the kind of playing on a loop before the meeting. Okay. As I mentioned, the high tea will be on the 11th of April. We did want to kind of tighten up the awards portion of that tea because I feel like we don't have a lot of time often to socialize, and we're actually planning a pretty a good menu so that you'll have good food, good company. So we think that the high tea will try to have a little bit more time so you can actually have a little bit shorter awards presentation. And in doing that, we thought we might kind of limit the number of awards from the 24 that we had last year to maybe closer to 10 to 12. So one of the things that we are considering is trying to get your input on what would be new awards, appropriate awards, funny awards. So we have a Google form. It's located off of the awards page here on the library staff, Librarians Assembly staff page. So these were the 7 awards that the program committee, and Beth and I, decided we would like to keep. We thought they were broad categories and it generated a lot of nominations, especially the Edie Dixon Behind the Scenes Award. That's it's definitely a keeper. We have Improving the Library, the User Experience Award, the Morale Mushroom Award, the Alma Maven Award, the Pinch Hitter Award. The person who kind of jumps in quickly, fills the gap. An Inclusivity and Practice Award, and this year a new suggestion for a Team Award. So it might be a chance to nominate a group who's actually done something. But we would like your suggestions for awards from the membership. So everybody can just kind of pop into this Google form. I've made a couple of blanks. If you want to see the awards that we've offered in previous years, looking for inspiration, you think there's something that we should bring back. If you have an award in mind for a specific person, this isn't the point where you nominate them, but you can make the category, the awards category for them to be the perfect recipient of. Any questions on how you might be able to participate in this? If we get enough nominations, we will then sift and winnow, as we so like to do on this campus, to maybe the top 3 or 5, and then we'll add those to the categories that we have kind of determined that we would like to keep. We'll send out a survey, or a Qualtrics survey that you can kind of vote on the top contenders, and then in March we'll have the point where we have the final list of categories, and we'll seek your nominations. As always, the steering committee will meet to kind of determine the awards. We have in the past not had steering committee members eligible for awards. Since there are so few, it doesn't seem quite seemly to give them to ourselves. But if you are a member of a team, that's not going to preclude you from your team being recognized. Also, the steering committee does kind of make the final decision as far as like ties and parity and things like that, just so you know. But any questions about the process, what we're going to try to do? Heather, yes.
Right. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but it said, you scroll back up, it said suggestions from the membership. So can all library staff suggest a category?
Yes.
Thank you.
I love Google. Anything else? Any other questions? Okay, I think I have everything done that I wanted to. If you have any, feel free to contact any member of the programming committee, and we'll work to incorporate it into practice somehow.
Well, I'd just like to say thank you to Pamela and Anne and Elizabeth for this work, because I think it's great that we can get recognition for people's work throughout the year and not just kind of wait to the high tea. And so thank you. It's great work. So that wraps up the meeting. Does anyone have any questions or final thoughts they want to share? Since we're all together. Okay, well, we still have some snacks and lemonade, so please help yourself. And thanks everyone for coming. I will try to get these links into the meeting notes that'll be on the Library Assembly. Thanks, everybody.